Okay guys, it's time to talk about Gravity, and if you haven't seen the movie, that made absolutely no sense whatsoever, so now here's my review for Gravity. That's a go, NASA. We're now engaging on our mission for our spoiler-filled review of the movie Gravity. See, I could have been an astronaut. It's not that hard. If only I was good at math and wasn't scared of heights. I probably could have been an astronaut. This movie stars Sandra Bullock and George Clooney. By the way, George Clooney dies 14 minutes into this movie, but you know what? The 14 minutes of screen time that he has and the screen presence that George Clooney brings to this movie, very charismatic, very charming, very witty, and typical George Clooney, but I'm not complaining because I really enjoyed his character in this movie. And then you have Sandra Bullock's character in the movie, who's on her first ever space mission as they repair the Hubble telescope, and things go terribly wrong. Yeah, pretty much everything that can possibly go wrong in this movie does go wrong. Sandra Bullock in this movie plays Dr. Ryan Stone. She definitely has some dark-rooted depression issues. She's smart, she's not a moron, but she's a little too panicky and fidgety to be in space. I don't really think NASA as a program would ever send a woman with that kind of psychosis into space. At times I really got behind her character. She was very strong-willed, she was doing what it takes to survive, and as far as acting and performance goes in this movie, I don't have any complaints. I really don't. I mean, there was one scene in this movie where she almost commits suicide because all hope is gone. I really bought into that scene. I was like, I like that. Sandra Bullock, you can act. By the way, a quick flip fact, they originally were going to cast Angelina Jolie in this movie, and then they were going to cast Natalie Portman for the role, but she got pregnant, which, by the way, I could have seen Natalie Portman in this role, but you know what? I'm not complaining with who we got because I think Sandra Bullock pulled it off very well. Now, as far as the nitpicky complaints go with this movie, I've read all of them online, and the movie Gravity isn't a 100% accurate depiction of what life is like in space with astronauts. It's far from it, and they definitely took quite a few liberties, but they did it for entertainment value, and I'm okay with that. I didn't go to the movie expecting anything else. But my only big gripe with the movie is there's one scene where George Clooney saves Sandra Bullock and he's in his little thruster pack and he's flying around with Sandra Bullock, you know, tethered behind him, dragging along, and her oxygen level's down to like 2%, and they're hundreds and hundreds of feet away from this other space station, and Sandra Bullock and George Clooney's character are having this conversation, and keep in mind she has 2% oxygen left. You would have thought at that point she would have maybe conserved her oxygen and not talked and took little breaths, but she's huffing the entire time and just having a conversation back and forth with George Clooney. So yeah, that's my only nitpicky complaint about the movie. I mean, don't get me wrong, I noticed other things in the movie, but I could let them go for the sake of entertainment value. But that one scene, I was just like, these two characters seem too smart to be doing this right now. Now let's talk about the visuals in this movie. This movie just looks expensive. I mean, this movie was made on a budget of $100 million. And I see a lot of other movies being shit out of Hollywood nowadays that cost much more than that, and their effects just don't even compare to this movie. This movie was just visually mind-blowing. It really looked like a lot of these scenes took place in zero-gravity environments, especially with the space station settings. Everything looked completely legit, very detailed. I really bought into it. It had kind of a grittiness about it, like things looked like they were used and beat up. It wasn't all clean and perfect. And this movie also has a lot of continuous one-shots in the movie where the camera just keeps panning and moving around the characters. And it's really cool, and I can appreciate things like that, you know, from a stylistic standpoint, a technology standpoint. Plus, it's nice not to see chopped up movies all the time with shaky cam. And this movie doesn't implement a lot of those things, you know. This movie's very smooth, very nice to look at. And I'm gonna set the camera down now because my arm's getting tired. I found myself at times with my hands getting sweaty because I could really feel myself in these intense situations with Sandra Bullock's character trying to survive. You know, she's flying around space, she's trying to grab onto. By the way, one little other thing I noticed, every time she flies past something, she literally always grabs onto the last possible thing that she can grab onto. Like if there's 50 handles to grab onto, she grabs onto the last one every time that she's flying past something. And I think with all that said, this movie achieved what it was supposed to do, and that was to put the viewer on the edge of their seat. And before I give my rating for this movie, I first want to mention one of the most intense scenes in this movie actually doesn't take place in space. It takes place when she gets back to Earth. Even until the last second, it makes this character go through so much to survive, and I really enjoyed that. You know, that scene where she's drowning and she's trying to, you know, swim up to the surface of the water and the parachute's falling in on her. Just a beautiful, great looking shot. So I'm going to give the movie Gravity an A-. Now, the reason I gave the movie an A- is because the movie does have some flaws, like I mentioned, and also I think this is a one-time experience. I don't feel like this movie will give me the same thing the second time around, and rewatchability is a big part of my rating system. So that's my movie review for Gravity. Let me know what you guys thought about the movie down below, or let me know what your favorite space movie of all time is. My name's John, this is the Flick Pick channel, and I'll see you guys later. Psh.